Thank you so much. And then we are going to ask that everyone remain muted. Let me introduce myself and the speakers you will be hearing from. My name is Jennifer McGuffin. I am the Chief Communications Officer at the law firm of Romanucci and Blandon in Chicago. And our firm, along with the firm of Maples and Connick, which has a wide presence in the Southeast and the Gulf states, together represent the family and the interests of Jaleen Anderson. You will hear from Romanucci and Blandon Senior Attorney Steve Weil, Romanucci and Blandon Attorney Sam Harton. You will hear from Jaleen Anderson's mother, Sarah Knight, and you will hear from Texas Jail Project Executive Director Krish Gundu. Now, each of their names and spellings should be visible on the screen as they're speaking. So you can take that information from them. Certainly, if you can't see that, we'll get that to you shortly. Let me also just remind everyone that when we are finished with statements, we will take questions from reporters. We'll call you out by name, which is why, thank you, I asked that we could just know who's speaking. And when you call you out, we'll make your mic live and you can ask your question. Okay, thank you all very much. We're going to now turn it over to Attorney Sam Harton.
Morning, everyone. Is my volume okay, Jen? Okay. We don't send people to the hospital for seizures. That is what at least one correctional nurse told guards during the evening of April 3rd, 2024, as Jaleen Anderson was suffering and dying right before their eyes. Jaleen was a 29-year-old pretrial detainee in the custody of the Harris County Jail in Houston, Texas. He had not been convicted of a crime, but Harris County nevertheless shipped hundreds of miles away to LaSalle Correctional Center in Ola, Louisiana, a jail operated by a private company called LaSalle Corrections. The guards had called nursing staff for medical assistance because Jaleen was suffering from repeated seizures that left him vomiting, disoriented, urinating on himself, and unable to get up from his bunk. Mr. Anderson had been suffering seizures for more than a day and told LaSalle staff that he had a history of seizures. Even though guards repeatedly called code blue emergencies for him, one LaSalle nurse after another brushed them off, making no effort to determine why Mr. Anderson kept having the seizures or whether he needed to go to the hospital. Though the danger to Mr. Anderson's health and safety was evident, he continued to suffer without appropriate medical treatment or transfer to a hospital. One LaSalle staff member even stood over Mr. Anderson while he seized and laughed. Soon after that, Mr. Anderson passed away. Today, national civil rights trial firm Romanucci and Blandon and esteemed local counsel Maples and Connick announced the filing of a lawsuit holding those responsible accountable for their failure to provide life-saving medical aid, which led to Anderson's death at 29 years old. Mr. Anderson was an unfortunate victim of Harris County's decision to privatize their jail system, enter into a contract with LaSalle Corrections, and implement policies that deprive detainees of medical care. Although he was a resident of Houston, Texas, he was being held in Louisiana because Harris County, Texas outsourced the jailing of many detainees to that private prison company called LaSalle Corrections. By shipping people to a private jail in Louisiana, Harris County avoided oversight by the Texas Commission on Jail Standards, which regulates jails in the state to ensure that Texas residents in jail receive humane treatment, including adequate medical care. That lack of oversight should have been cause for alarm, because LaSalle Corrections has a long and troubling history of failing to provide adequate medical care to the people it detains, even people with serious medical conditions like Mr. Anderson. Harris County was on notice about their troubling track record, yet it continued to ship out people in its custody to LaSalle. 1 year ago today, Jaleen Anderson died when he did not have to. Jaleen should be alive today with his family, his children, his wife, his mother, if he had received the basic medical care he needed. if he had been in an environment that respected his humanity and at the very least his constitutional rights, he could be alive. On behalf of Jalen's loved ones, we filed this lawsuit, which my colleague Stephen Weil will walk you through in just a moment, seeking justice and accountability for Jalen. This case exposes the dangerous, deadly flaws inherent in the private prison system and the agreement between Harris County, Texas, and the LaSalle Corrections in Louisiana. Mr. Anderson's family brings this lawsuit to hold accountable the medical staff and jail administrators at the Ola jail who ignored Mr. Anderson, ignored his seizures, ignored his needs, and refused to get him treatment. They've sued LaSalle Corrections, its owners, for their indifference to the medical needs of people like Mr. Anderson. They've sued Harris County and Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, who cannot outsource the county's non-delegable duty to ensure that Mr. Anderson and other Harris County detainees are housed in humane conditions and receive adequate medical care while they are in county's custody. Mr. Anderson's death was entirely preventable, and he leaves behind a grieving family. By bringing this lawsuit, his family seeks redress for that harm and seeks to deter jailers from doing to someone else what the defendants did to Mr. Anderson. It is our expectation that this lawsuit will be a vehicle for justice for our clients, for the tragic loss of a loved one, but also that the civil action will shine light on these patterns and practices that have gone on far too long in this twisted system. This has to stop, and we are fiercely committed to being the agent of change for current and future people in their care. So now I'd like to turn it over to Attorney Stephen Weil, who'll discuss the complaint in more detail.
Hi, good morning, everyone. As Ms. Harden said, my name is Steve Weil. I'm a lawyer in Chicago with Romanucci and Blandon. To walk you through the complaint, it's filed while Mr. Anderson was a resident of Houston and he was in the custody of the Harris County Sheriff's Department. The complaint is filed in Louisiana, in the Western District there, because that's where the events occurred. It's where Mr. Anderson received the inadequate care, we allege, and where he died. The complaint, as Ms. Harden just said, it kind of names three sets of defendants. One are what we call the corporate and municipal defendants. That includes Harris County. It includes various LaSalle correctional entities. That's the outside vendor that Harris County outsourced its detainees to, including Mr. Anderson. The second set of defendants are various supervisors. That includes Sheriff Gonzalez and people in Louisiana, LaSalle, who had obligations to supervise and make sure that the kinds of things that happened to Mr. Anderson didn't happen. The third set of defendants are the nurses who, as Ms. Harden just recounted, repeatedly ignored or blew off concerns raised by a number of guards who were trying to help Mr. Anderson and just said essentially, we don't send people to hospital for seizures, even though Mr. Anderson was suffering from escalating seizures. The plaintiffs in the complaint are Mr. Anderson's family, his wife, Nefertiti Gilbert, and his children were represented, but yet he had multiple children, and those are plaintiffs in the case. They are the ones seeking the remedies here. The complaint, in terms of the way it's structured, marches through what Ms. Harden just described, the 2 days, April 2nd and 3rd, 2024, when Mr. Anderson was suffering escalating seizures, where guards were calling out for permission for the nurses essentially to send him to the hospital, and where multiple nurses repeatedly denied it and articulated the policy. We do not send people to the hospital for seizures. The remainder of the complaint talks about why this happened. It talks about the Harris County essentially outsourcing and trying to privatize, holding a lot of prisoners in Louisiana as opposed to Texas. It's not subject to the same Texas regulations that are designed to protect Texas residents. And then it talks about LaSalle and this private company that runs a number of prisons all over the country has been sued repeatedly for deaths and maiming of prisoners in its facilities. The complaint alleges that both that Harris County could not delegate its duty to provide care for and ensure that its prisoners or its detainees received adequate medical care, were in humane conditions. And it seeks remedy from LaSalle as well and its owners, who essentially offer cut rate bids for medical care or for housing, and then maintain profitability by providing or avoiding medical care every which way they can. The complaint seeks compensatory damages for Mr. Anderson's death and the loss of his life to his family. And it charges that Mr. Anderson likely would be alive if he'd simply been sent to the hospital as he should have been. I would like to now introduce Mr. Anderson's mother, Sarah Knight. She's with us here today, and she'd like to share her thoughts as well. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Knight. I want to start by thanking everyone for coming here, and I want you all to hear the heart of a mother. I'm here to tell you a devastating turn of events that has happened in our lives. I'm a mother of 4 children. My life was turned upside down. Our life was turned upside down also. When I received a call on April 3rd at 12:01 a.m. by a lady named Natasha Young. She said she was the chaplain of Harris County in a jail here in Houston, Texas. And she said that my son, the youngest of 4 children, was allowed to die by LaSalle Correctional Facilities due to the medical negligence. My son suffered multiple seizures while he was taken back and forth to the facility's infirmary. He was never given the proper care, and he suffered a preventable death. Now, I hold Harris County, along with LaSalle Correctional Facility, responsible and accountable for the death of my son. Jaleen was a great father. He left 6 beautiful children behind. My grandson will never have a chance to play ball with his father. My granddaughters will never walk down the aisle by their dad. They robbed us of our son. He kept everyone together. My son walked into Harris County alive and well, and he came back to me dead and in a body bag. I will not stop this fight for justice for Jaleen and friends. This injustice caused me to open my eyes, stand up, and fight against all the wickedness and corruption that is being caused by jail facilities. I want to say something that is in my heart, and I had to write this portion down simply. You know, it feels like he was killed by LaSalle because they neglected his pleas for medical care. And actively, when you let someone die in this way. This was very hard, and it is currently. Today marks the 1 year of my baby's death. And it's a hard thing. And I want to leave you all with these. There is 4 individuals that deserve this platform with Jaleen, even though they are not being represented. Billy Davis, Thomas Marshall, Jaleen Anderson, and Eric Carlson are all men that died at LaSalle Correctional Facility, who is known very well for medical negligence. And we will keep fighting for these men, these fathers, these great individuals that were great for their families, for the state to recognize the deaths in the database and investigate what is going on in these facilities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. We appreciate your honesty. I want to make sure that we hear next from Krish Gundu from the Texas Jail Project.
Good morning. I want to take a moment to acknowledge Ms. Knight's grief on the first anniversary of her son's passing. My name is Krish Gundu. I'm the co-founder and executive director of Texas Jail Project. We're a grassroots advocacy work organization working statewide on county jail conditions. 29-year-old Jaleen died on April 3rd of last year in LaSalle Corrections Facility in Louisiana after being transferred from Harris County Jail in Houston. Jaleen was one of thousands of pretrial detainees who have been shipped out of Texas to other states since 2021. Jaleen's death is a symptom of a deeply dysfunctional criminal legal system. Jaleen was one of 4 individuals from Texas who have died in Louisiana after being shipped away from Texas, from their families, from their communities, from 2 separate counties. This lawsuit is the first concrete attempt to hold Harris County Sheriff's Office and its notorious private contractor, LaSalle Corrections, accountable for the lack of protocol and easily preventable deaths. These deaths are symptoms of hyper-incarceration and failed policies peddled in the name of public safety, which have only made our communities less safe. We hope this lawsuit will send a strong message that our community will no longer tolerate our loved ones being arbitrarily ripped away from their families and transferred hundreds of miles away to be subjected to the inhumane and violently cruel conditions in LaSalle Corrections without any of the necessary protections that are afforded to them as Texans, such as transparency and oversight. In fact, Texans who die outside Texas pre-trial are not even afforded the basic counting and recording in our custody database. This lawsuit should serve as a wake-up call to our county commissioners and all state actors that by shipping Texans out of state, we are opening the floodgates of consequences that we are ill-equipped to deal with. If we don't course correct now, these in-custody deaths will soon become the norm. We hope this litigation forces Harris County to acknowledge that it cannot shirk its responsibility by using geography and delegation as an excuse. Harris County Sheriff's Office is just as culpable for its active role in over-criminalizing and hyper-incarcerating our communities. This lawsuit is an attempt to hold the Sheriff's Office accountable for the harms perpetrated on thousands of Harris County residents who are being held in abysmal conditions in out-of-state facilities run by notorious private prison companies at an annual cost of $58 million to Harris County taxpayers. We hope the county course corrects and reduces its jail population so we can bring our loved ones back from LaSalle in Louisiana and Mississippi, where we're shipping them out. Thank you.
Thank you, Krish. We will now move into the Q&A portion of our press conference. And so I will encourage any reporter who has a question to please indicate so in the chat so that we can call you out and give you that opportunity. And while you do that, I wanted to do one or two housekeeping items because Sarah Knight's name is not on her screen because she has Justice for Jaleen. I just want to confirm the proper spelling of her name is Sarah, and Knight is Knight. And I also wanted to acknowledge the two attorneys from Maples and Connick who are on the call, Aaron Maples and Brendan Connick. Thank you for your partnership on this case. While we are waiting for any questions in the chat, Krish, I wonder if you would be willing to talk just another bit and share some of the data we were discussing earlier this morning about the population, the prison population you are seeing in Texas, and then the size of the population that continues to be, I'll just say, outsourced to one of these private facilities.
Yes, and I will say that the term outsourced is just so it doesn't quite capture what is happening in our communities when people are being shipped away and transferred out of state. It deeply impacts their defense. It breaks their relationships in the community with their families. It is just a deeply destabilizing practice. And we got data this morning from the Jail Commission. The current jail population in Harris County is 9,046. And out of that, we have, right now, we have 1,406 Texans who have been shipped out of Texas. That's both to Louisiana and Mississippi. And that is, a lot of people think that this is because we are overcrowded. That's not true. Our jail is not overcrowded. We actually have hundreds of empty beds. The reason we're shipping people out is because we are unable to maintain the staff ratio that is mandated by the state, by the Texas Commission on Jail Standards. And that ratio is 1:48. That's the minimum standard that we have to maintain to ensure basic safety. And so we're unable to maintain that standard, which is why we are transferring people out of our communities. Back in February, on the 7th of February, those numbers, the jail population numbers were 9,847, and out of which 1,391 were out of state. But today that number is 9,046, but the number out of state is 1,406. And Harris County is not the only county that's doing this, engaging in this practice of, I would say, literally making people disappear pre-trial when they die, because when you're shipped out of state, you have no protections that are afforded to you from the Jail Commission and their minimum standards. So there are 4 other counties that are also sending their pretrial detainees out of state. And last week, that total number was 1,389, but it's gone up since then. So this is just a symptom of a really, like I said, deeply dysfunctional criminal punishment system where people are spending an enormous amount of time locked up pre-trial, unable to buy their freedom. And I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Krish. At this point, we are not seeing any requests for questions in the chat. And I want to give this just another minute in the event that this chat function isn't working properly. So I'm going to give you an email, and it is press, PRESS, @rblaw.net. press@rblaw.net. And we'll give that another 2 minutes. And while we are doing that, I just want to see if Attorney Steve Weil can talk about next steps in this case. Now that the case is filed, what do you expect procedurally, and do you have any feel for a time frame for those next steps?
Sure. So again, the case is filed in Louisiana, even though it involves a lot of policy decisions in Harris County. It'll proceed, we filed it yesterday, so obviously we haven't been to court yet or anything, but it will proceed as cases usually do. The defendants will be served. They may have a chance to try to dismiss the case. We're confident in the allegations we've made, and then it'll move to discovery. The discovery, I think there are sort of 2 different sets of discovery here. One is going to involve just what happened to Jaleen, Mr. Anderson, who was trying to help him, who wasn't, why he was denied care right there on that day. And there's then a second set of discovery, and that is a lot about what Ms. Gundu just talked about, the policy choices that resulted in this, the lack of accountability, the profit motive, other people who've been subjected to similar conditions and had similar terrible outcomes. And all of that will be part of this case as it moves forward.
Thank you, Steve. We do have a question from Pooja Salhotra from the Texas Tribune. Pooja.
Hi, thank you so much for holding this press conference. I was wondering if the attorneys can explain maybe how they got the information that is outlined in the complaint, specifically the detailed information about when Jaleen suffered various seizures and how the law enforcement officers responded. Is that based on video surveillance?
The information that we had comes from a number of sources, but after Mr. Anderson died, Harris County did send investigators out to talk with jail guards and everybody else there. They wrote up reports, and the reason we're able to offer some direct quotes from something that happened in the past like that is because guards talked to them and said, "This, I was trying to provide help, and this is what I was told." And so that investigation was a large source for the complaint. We also have video, which you see in the complaint, video stills and what have you. But there is an investigation here that was done that's very damning.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I believe that concludes our press event for this morning. Should you have any additional follow-up questions, again, I'll give you that email, press@rblaw.net. Thank you especially to Sarah Knight for sharing her grief and her story and her point of view. Thank you to Krish Gundu and to the legal team as well. We appreciate everyone's time and work on this matter. Thank you and have a good morning.